But to the breaking news late this afternoon. One Nation Leader Pauline Hanson went into the Senate today dressed in a burqa after she'd been refused permission to introduce a bill to ban the burqa from public spaces. Now, Hanson was abused by several senators and not allowed to defend herself, while Muslim Senator Fatima Payman could freely wear her hijab. Hanson wasn't even allowed to speak in her defence before the Senate was suspended after she refused to leave, although others were given a free shot at her.
But racism should not be the choice of the Senate. This is a racist senator displaying blatant racism and Islamophobia, President.
If this is about the dress code, she is disrespecting a faith. She is disrespecting the Muslims out there, Muslim Australians. It's absolutely unconstitutional. This needs to be dealt with immediately before we proceed.
Clearly, what has happened today is not a genuine demonstration of faith. In fact, it is the middle finger to people of faith. It is extremely racist and unsafe.
Senator Hanson, all of us in this place have a great privilege in coming into this chamber, a great privilege. And we represent, in our states, people of every faith,
Even the Liberal leader in the Senate, another woman, attacked Hanson. So much for free speech and democracy. But Hanson, on her way out, did give a little speech to members of the public who've been watching on, explaining what she was doing and why. They, at least, very interesting, gave her a round of applause and called out, "Good on you, Pauline." And now Pauline Hanson will explain herself to you. Pauline Hanson, thank you so much for joining me. Why wear the burqa in the Senate? Now, you did it 8 years ago and did cause outrage among some, so why do it again?
Yeah. Andrew, today I moved on the floor of Parliament. As a senator, I have a right to move a private member's bill, and that bill was under the Criminal Code amendment to prohibit the burqa or full face coverings in public places. Now, I wanted to introduce that bill. My concern is, as a nation, for national security, terrorist threats and attacks that are happening, also for women's rights, that they're not forced to wear the full burqa against their will. And it's, I think it goes against our culture and our way of life. And this is why I wanted to introduce the bill. Now, I just started to introduce the bill, and it took one voice, Andrew. There was a couple actually said no, denied me the right. So straight away they denied me the right to ban the burqa. So I actually left the chamber, went up and I put the burqa on. I thought, well, if you won't ban the burqa, then I'm going to wear it. Well, didn't that upset them? They didn't want me to wear the burqa in Parliament. They don't want to ban it, but they don't want me to wear it in Parliament. So what do they want? They're a bunch of hypocrites.
Well, I have to say that did occur to me too, but that said, the President, Sue Lines, has said that this is in fact a religious requirement. The senators there were saying you are mocking a faith then by wearing it, and therefore you shouldn't be allowed to wear it. In fact, you've been asked for an assurance that you won't wear it in future because it's supposedly insulting Islam. Your response?
That's correct, what you're saying. Andrew, let me make it quite clear. I do have the utmost respect for people of what faith they may be. And that's why I stood up for the Jewish people. I'm not Jewish, but I stood up for their rights. I've stood up for, Christians and Buddhists and different ones, and even with Muslims, that's a person's faith. Do I agree with everything they do? No, I don't, but that's a person's faith. The burqa is not a religious requirement. It's been introduced by men hundreds of years ago, and that was about controlling the women. They didn't want their women's flesh to be seen, so it's basically controlling women. It goes against our culture and our way of life. Sue Lines saying that it is a religious requirement. They don't understand Islamic culture or law. So I'm trying to say, let these people who come here to this country, let these women, let them assimilate, because all you're doing is just keep them covered up. What do we do for driver's licences? What do we do in public places and all these other things? People, the general public, feel they're being treated totally different. Those people walk into banks or other venues with a helmet on. They're told immediately, get it off, we have to see a face. What are they going to do? How are they going to deal with it when we have facial recognition? What are they going to do? how are they going to deal with it?
Yeah, but I've heard a lot of Muslim activists and etc. say, no, these women choose to wear the burqa. It should be their right to dress as they see fit. Now, against that, I will point out that I was in Afghanistan when the Taliban were first chased out, and I saw a lot of women without the burqa. The Taliban, the men of the Taliban came back, and suddenly burqas everywhere. So that did seem to be some sort of compulsion there. But what about to women who say, no, it's my free choice?
Well, good, that's your free choice. Wear it around your house. I don't care what you do there. But in public places, why shouldn't the general public feel safe and knowing who's approaching them? You know, is it a man underneath there? How do we know they're there to commit a crime in our society? We don't know that. You know, are we going to take it for granted? When I wore the burqa the first time in the Parliament,
many examples
well, you
of that,
should have seen the look on their faces. Sorry?
I haven't seen examples of men in burqas committing crimes, though.
You don't know. How do you know that they're not wearing it as a cover-up to commit a crime? How do we know that? Full face coverings, we don't need it. My bill covered also full face coverings, Andrew, not just the burqa. Okay, so full face coverings. Then you ask yourself the question, why have so many countries banned the burqa? Why have Islamic countries banned it as well? So you've got to ask yourself that question. Do we want to see this country go the way of France, Denmark, or even Great Britain, the way it is now? And I don't want to see it go that way. Why shouldn't we have open facades so people can see who you are? Why shouldn't these people assimilate? And that's another thing, Andrew. How do we know that these people are not going to end up on our welfare system? You know, are they employable? I don't know. There's a lot of questions here, but they never gave me the ability to debate this bill on the floor of Parliament. They shut it down. Why not have debate? Why not have counter arguments against me? Why? And let the public know the way it should think. But no, they don't. They just shut me down completely. It can't be debated. Finished. It's gone.
Well, here you touch on something that does concern me a fair bit, because you weren't allowed to table your bill or even have a debate in the Senate. You weren't even allowed to speak in your defence after being told to take off the burqa or leave.
Correct.
That strikes me as, well, an infringement on how Parliament should work, on your right to speak as a politician. Strikes me as a lot of nervousness going on there.
A lot of bias as well. And I called the President out, and she had a meeting with me afterwards. And I told her, I said, you're biased towards me. I said, you never gave me the opportunity to raise or speak to it. Why? I said, you just completely ignored me. Even I said other senators, those of my party and another party, stood up to actually have say something to it. And she completely ignored them, wouldn't call them. She called for a division. There was more than two voices. She completely ignored it. When it was questioned, she said, I've made my decision. The ayes have it, to suspend me. The process of that Parliament was not followed to the letter, and I called her out for it. And I'm sick and tired of the bias that's shown towards me. This isn't the first time I've had one of my private members' bill in that Parliament denied to me. So I'll still keep standing my ground with this, and I still will fight on the issues that are important to me. And these issues are brought to me constantly by the general public, Andrew. You know, it's nothing to do with, you know, against a person's faith. As I said, I respect a person's faith, no matter what your faith is. But when it does impact on the national security of this nation, when it impacts and, you know, when we are at a probable cause for terrorism in the country, I'm sorry, I am going to keep standing my ground until we get some common sense.
Well, again, I would point out that I don't even know of a single terrorist incident involving anyone in a burqa in Australia. But, you know, the assimilation thing, I think, is a live issue for me. But more the refusal to even debate this. I think that is the really serious issue today. But so many things tossed up here. Pauline Hanson, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me on, Andrew.